My change now! You shortchanged me! Liar! Get here!
Obinna Adeleke had 30 billion naira in his account, a fleet of cars that looked like spaceships, and a mansion in Banana Island that had its own zip code. Yet, on a Tuesday morning, he was sitting on the dirty floor under the Ikeja Bridge, wearing a torn shirt that smelled like wet dog and regrets. You see, Obinna was convinced that every woman who smiled at him only saw a walking ATM machine. He wanted true love, but as he sat there watching a downfall driver fight a passenger over 50 naira change, Obinna was about to learn that in Lagos, sometimes the only thing worse than fake love is the naked, ugly truth. Now, before we get to the madness under the bridge, you need to understand the kind of man Obinna was. He was the type of guy who didn't know the price of fuel because his driver handled it. He thought hardship was when the Wi-Fi in his private jet was buffering. He was 32, handsome in that way that money polishes you, and lonely. His last girlfriend, Titi, had left him. Well, she didn't leave him. He caught her sending his bank statement to her pastor for prayer points. That was the final straw. "I need a woman who loves me for me, Toby," Obinna told his personal assistant the night before the madness started. They were in his living room, surrounded by Italian leather furniture that cost more than a duplex in Surulere. Toby, who was the only person paid enough to tell Obinna the truth, sighed. "Oga, this isn't a Nollywood movie. If you dress like a madman, you will attract madness. Lagos is not a romantic place. It is a jungle." But Obinna was stubborn. Rich people are always stubborn because they can afford to be wrong. He had a plan. He would disguise himself as a beggar, not a madman, just a down-on-his-luck struggling hustleman, and sit at a busy junction. The woman who treated him with kindness despite his poverty would be the one. It sounded simple, it sounded romantic. The next morning, the sun hadn't even fully risen, but the heat was already angry. Obinna was dropped off 2 streets away from the popular Ikeja bus stop. He was wearing a faded Chelsea jersey with holes in the armpit, trousers that had seen 3 generations of suffering, and bathroom slippers that were held together by hope and superglue. He rubbed charcoal on his face to hide his smooth, expensive skin. He messed up his hair. He looked the part. He looked like a man whose village people had finally succeeded. He found a spot near a cellar of roasted plantain, bully. The smell of the roasting plantain mixed with the exhaust fumes of 1,000 struggling cars hit him hard. It was the scent of the real Lagos. For the first 3 hours, nobody looked at him. This was his first shock. In his real life, people stared at him constantly. Waiters, bankers, women, security guards, everyone wanted his attention. Here, he was invisible. He was part of the concrete. "Oga, shift your leg, abeg," a woman carrying a heavy tray of pure water shouted at him. She didn't say sorry. She didn't care. Obinna shifted. His legs were cramping. The sun was hammering his head like a blacksmith. He was thirsty, but he had left his wallet in the G-Wagon. He had committed to the role. He watched humanity flow past him. He saw men in suits sweating through their shirts, their eyes dead with worry. He saw mothers dragging 3 children, counting coins with shaking hands. He saw the struggle he only read about in newspapers. And then he saw her, or rather, he saw the first candidate. Let's call her Cynthia. Cynthia looked like everything Obinna usually dated. She was fair, wearing a tight gown that looked expensive but was probably thrift, and her wig was laid to perfection. She was walking toward a church nearby, carrying a big Bible. Perfect, Obinna thought, a God-fearing woman. As she approached, Obinna stretched out his dirty plastic bowl. "Auntie, please, help a brother, even if it's 50 naira for water." Cynthia stopped. She looked at the bowl. She looked at Obinna's charcoal-stained face. Then she did something that made Obinna's heart stop. She covered her nose. "Get away from me, you smell like poverty," she hissed. "Lazy man, go and find work. You are young, look at your muscles. Thief!" She actually kicked the edge of his foot with her red heel as she walked past. Obinna sat there stunned. The rejection stung more than he expected. It wasn't just that she said no, it was the disgust in her eyes. It was the way she looked at him like a stain on the pavement. If Obinna thought the morning was bad, the afternoon was determined to show him pepe. Around 1 p.m., his stomach began to rumble. It wasn't the polite rumble of a rich man skipping lunch. It was the aggressive growl of a man who hadn't eaten since the previous night's lobster bisque. He sat there watching people eat gala and drink lacasera. The hunger was making him dizzy. He realized he had made a tactical error. He had no wallet, and he was too proud to actually beg effectively. Now, before we see if our billionaire survives hunger or decides to eat the charcoal on his face, you are enjoying this story for free right now. But if you don't subscribe to this channel, your village people might disconnect your data right at the sweetest part of the gist. Don't tempt fate. Hit that subscribe button now. It's cheaper than a plate of rice. Actually, it costs 0 naira. Do it now. Oh yeah, let's continue. By 2 p.m., Obinna was considering calling Toby to come and pick him up. The experiment was a failure. Lagos women were mean, the sun was wicked, and his buttocks were hurting from the hard concrete. Then the dynamic changed. A young woman walked by. She wasn't flashy like Cynthia. She wore a simple Ankara skirt and blouse. Her hair was braided back neatly, and she looked tired. Not angry, just exhausted. She was carrying a heavy bag that looked like it contained fabrics. This was Nneka. Nneka stopped near the bully seller to buy a small piece of yam. She counted her money carefully. Obinna, observing from his lowly position, saw that she didn't have much. She put the change back in a small, worn-out purse. As she turned to leave, she locked eyes with Obinna. He didn't ask this time. He was too tired. He just looked at her. Nneka paused. She looked at her piece of yam. It was small. She looked at Obinna. She sighed, broke the yam in two, and walked over to him. "Brother," she said softly. Her voice sounded like cool water. "Take, I know it's small, but it will hold your stomach." She dropped the bigger half of the yam into his bowl. Obinna stared at the yam. Then he looked up at her. "Thank you, sister. God bless you." "Amen," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "It is well." She walked away. Obinna ate that yam like it was a Michelin star meal. It tasted like charcoal and palm oil, but it also tasted like hope. For the next 3 days, Obinna returned to the spot. Toby tried to stop him. "Oga, you have found the girl. She gave you yam. Experiment over. Go and marry her." "No," Obinna said, his eyes obsessive. "I need to be sure. One piece of yam is not enough proof." Obinna was becoming addicted to the game. He wanted to see how far Nneka's kindness went. On the second day, Nneka gave him a bottle of water. On the third day, she stopped to talk. "Why are you here?" she asked him, ignoring the dirt on his shirt. "I lost my job," Obinna lied smoothly. "I was a driver. My boss sacked me because I scratched his car." "Sorry, eh? Lagos is hard," Nneka said, sitting on a stone near him. She didn't mind the dirt. "I am a seamstress, but my machine spoiled 2 weeks ago. I am trying to save money to fix it so I can finish my customers' clothes. If I don't finish, they won't pay." Obinna felt a pang of guilt. He could buy her 1,000 sewing machines. He could buy the factory that made the machines, but he said nothing. He needed to see more. But while Obinna was playing his romantic game, reality was closing in on Nneka. On the 4th day, a Thursday, Nneka didn't show up at her usual time. When she finally appeared, she was crying. She was walking fast, almost running, and behind her was a woman that looked like a tamp built out of pure aggression. This was Madame Rezo, the neighborhood lender. "You think you can run?" Madame Rezo shouted, grabbing Nneka's arm. The market traffic slowed down. Lagosians love a scene. "Pay me my money," she shouted. "You said when you deliver the clothes you will pay. Where is the money?" "Mama, please," Nneka sobbed. "The machine is still bad. I haven't finished the work. Please give me 2 days." 2 days? Madame Rezo slapped Nneka. It was a sharp, loud sound that cut through the noise of the traffic. "If you don't pay me my 50,000 naira by tomorrow evening, I will take your sewing machine and I will lock you up. You hear me?" She pushed Nneka into the gutter, right in front of Obinna. Nneka fell hard, scraping her arm. She lay there in the dirt, humiliated, weeping. Obinna's blood boiled. He forgot he was a beggar. He forgot the plan. He stood up, his height imposing even in rags. "Hey," Obinna shouted at Madame Rezo. "Don't touch her again." Madame Rezo turned and looked at him. She laughed, a deep, wicked laugh. "See this madman, oh, you want to fight for your girlfriend? You that cannot feed yourself. Will you pay her debt?" She stepped closer to Obinna. "If you talk again, I will slap the madness out of your head." Obinna clenched his fists. He could end this one's career with one phone call. He could have the commissioner of the police here in 10 minutes, but he couldn't break character. Not yet. He looked at Nneka, who was wiping mud off her face, looking defeated. "I will get the money," Obinna said quietly. Madame Rezo laughed so hard she choked. You want to get 50,000 naira by begging. If you see 50,000 naira, won't you run away to the village? Abeg, shift." She spat on the ground and walked away, promising hell for Nneka tomorrow. Nneka looked at Obinna. Her eyes were red. "Why did you speak? She is dangerous." "I will help you," Obinna said. "You can't help me," she whispered, and for the first time she looked at him with pity, not kindness, but pity. "You are just a beggar, my brother. You need help more than I do." She limped away. Obinna stood there, watching her go. He felt small. His billions meant nothing in that moment because she didn't know he had them. To her, he was just another powerless man in a city that crushed the weak. He realized the game had to end, but he couldn't just reveal himself. That would be too simple. He needed to test everyone one last time. Oh, more. Things have choked. The billionaire is angry, the good girl is in debt, and Madame Razor is sharpening her claws. Before we find out if Obinna will blow his cover or if Nneka will end up in a police cell, drop a comment below. Predict what Obinna would do. Will he just give her cash? Will he arrest Madame Razor? Or will he do something totally crazy? Comment your prediction now. If you get it right, I owe you a virtual high five. The next morning, Obinna didn't go to the bridge. Instead, he went to his office in Victoria Island. He bathed, shaved, and put on a suit that cost more than Madame Razor's entire existence. He called Toby. "Get the car," Obinna said, "and find out where Nneka lives. Also, find that girl Cynthia." "Cynthia? The one that kicked you?" Toby asked, confused. "Yes, I have a job opening for a receptionist. Make sure she sees the ad. Urgent interview today at 2 p.m. And invite Nneka too. Tell her she was recommended for a seamstress contract for our charity foundation." The stage was set. At 2 p.m., the waiting room of Adeleke Holdings was freezing cold with AC. Cynthia was there, looking sharp. She had upgraded her wig. She was rehearsing her smile, ready to charm this billionaire boss she had heard so much about. Nneka was there too. She looked out of place. She was wearing the same Ankara from yesterday, cleaned but faded. She looked terrified. She was probably wondering how a big company knew her name. Obinna watched them from the camera in his office. It was time. He walked into the waiting room. The receptionist stood up. "Ladies, Mr. Adeleke will see you now." Obinna stepped in. Cynthia jumped up, flashing a blinding smile. "Good afternoon, sir. It is an honor to—" She stopped. Her mouth hung open. She squinted. Obinna wasn't wearing charcoal, but he had the same face, the same eyes. He looked at her. "Cynthia, right? The God-fearing woman?" Cynthia's knees started shaking. "Sir, you look like the beggar you kicked 3 days ago?" Obinna asked, his voice calm but cold. "The one that smelled of poverty?" Cynthia turned pale. She tried to laugh it off. "Ah, sir, that was you. Haha, I knew it. It was a test, right? I was just testing your humility. You know, the Bible says—" "Get out," Obinna said. He didn't shout. He just said it with the weight of his bank account behind it. "Sir, please. Security." 2 large men appeared and escorted a crying Cynthia out. She had played the game of Lagos packaging and she had lost. Then Obinna turned to Nneka. Nneka was staring at him, her mouth covered with her hands. She wasn't smiling. She looked shocked and then angry. It's you, Nneka whispered. "Yes," Obinna said, softening his voice. He walked toward her. "Nneka, I am Obinna Adeleke. I was the man under the bridge. I saw your heart. I saw how you gave me your last food. I am looking for a wife, Nneka, a true woman, and I found you." He smiled, expecting her to faint with joy. He expected her to jump into his arms. This was the fairy tale moment. But Nneka didn't jump. She stood up, her eyes flashing fire. "You were playing?" Nneka asked. Her voice shook. "You have all this money, and you sat in the dirt watching me suffer." Obinna paused. "I was testing." "Testing me?" Nneka cut him off. "Yesterday, Madame Rizzo pushed me into the gutter. I went home and cried all night. I didn't eat so I could give you yam. I thought you were dying of hunger. I prayed for you." She pointed a finger at his expensive suit. "You think poverty is a game? You think my suffering is for your entertainment? Because you have money, you think you can play with people's lives to see if they are worthy of you?" Obinna was stunned. This wasn't the script. "Nneka, I want to pay your debt. I want to change your life," he stammered. "Keep your money," Nneka said, grabbing her bag. "I gave you kindness because I am a human being, not because I wanted to pass an exam for a billionaire husband."
She turned and walked out. Obinna stood in the middle of his office, surrounded by his millions, feeling completely stupid. Toby, standing in the corner, shook his head. I told you, Oga, this is not Nollywood. But the story doesn't end there. If it ended there, it would be a tragedy. And we don't do tragedy here. We do lessons. Obinna didn't give up, but he realized he couldn't buy her. That evening, Madame Rezo went to Neka's house to collect her money or her life. But before she could kick the door down, a bank alert entered her phone. 50,000 naira? No, 5 million naira. The reference read, payment for Neka's sewing machine factory. Leave her alone. Madame Rezo fainted. When she woke up, she became a deaconess. Neka received a delivery the next day. It wasn't a car, it wasn't jewelry. It was 3 industrial sewing machines and a handwritten letter. I am sorry. I was arrogant. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't expect you to marry me. But please, let me help your business. You saved me from hunger, let me save you from Madame Rezo, the beggar. Neka didn't call him immediately. She used the machines. She worked hard. She paid her rent. 2 months later, Obinna was sitting in his office looking at a file when his receptionist called. Sir, there is a lady here to see you. She says she has a delivery. Obinna walked out. It was Neka. She was wearing a beautiful dress, clearly made by her own hands. She looked healthy. She looked confident. She held out a plastic cooler. What is this? Obinna asked, heart beating fast. Yam and stew, Neka said, a small smile playing on her lips. But this time you have to pay for it. I don't give free food to billionaires. Obinna laughed. It was a genuine laugh in the first in years. How much? He asked. Expensive, she said. We can start with dinner. A real dinner, no costumes. See? I told you this story had layers. Now, before we wrap up, you have a job to do. Share this story to that your friend who is always testing their partner. Tell them to stop it before they collect water like Cynthia. Share it in your WhatsApp group. Share it to your status. Someone needs to learn that you don't test love with suffering. Obinna and Neka didn't get married the next day. They dated. He had to learn that she wasn't a project to be saved, and she had to learn to trust a man who started their relationship with a lie. It took time. It took patience. But eventually, they found a balance. Cynthia? Well, she is still in church, praying for a billionaire. Last we heard, she kicked a mechanic who was trying to ask her for directions. Poor girl, she doesn't know that the mechanic just won a lottery. The lesson? Be careful how you treat the people you meet on your way up, or on your way down, or under the bridge. Because in this life, especially in Lagos, you never know who is wearing a mask. The person you call a nobody today might be the person holding your destiny tomorrow. And as for Obinna, he never ate roasted plantain again. He said it tasted too much like humble pie.